Hello everyone, welcome to this video that will introduce the natural language processing tools of HistText. Natural language processing refers to the branch of computer science, and more specifically the branch of artificial intelligence concerned with giving computers the ability to understand text and spoken words in much the same way human beings can. NLP combines computational linguistics, that is, rule-based modeling of human language, with statistical, machine learning, and deep learning models. Together, we use these technologies to enable computers to process human language in the form of text to understand its full meaning, or, in our case, to extract data. The interface that we developed in HistText serves to process the full text data set that we are able to extract using the interface that I presented in the first two videos in the search and retrieval interface. Today I will present successively two data sets, one in English and one in Chinese. The second presentation will be shorter. It's just to highlight some slight differences between the two. To start with the extraction of data, and especially of named entities, you need to make sure you select the same corpus that you used when you did the search and retrieval of documents. In this case, I will use ProQuest, and I will upload the file that I initially searched about childbirth in the North China Herald. As you can see here, it was saved as a CSV file. I just have to upload it. Once the upload is complete, all you need to do is to click on Annotate. Annotating means that the algorithms behind the screen, if I may say so, will add the categories of named entities that exist in the text. We'll see that later, but just to give you a sense of what named entities are, in our interface we use OnToNote that defines 18 categories of named entities. They are highlighted here: persons, organization, cardinal, date, event, facility, that speaks to us. GPE is less obvious. It stands for geopolitical entities, law, location, money. NORP, which means nationalities or religious or political groups. Ordinal, percent, products, quantity, time, and work of art. It's a long list. The capacity to identify named entities properly, of course, depends on the language, the algorithms, and the quality of the text. In our case, there are often issues of OCR, which may constitute an obstacle in recognizing these entities properly. Once you have annotated, as you can see, you first have the results in the form of a data frame with the document ID, the type of named entity, the corresponding text, the location in the text, and a confidence index. The confidence index tells you how confident the algorithm is about identifying the relevant named entity properly. It's not an absolute measure of accuracy. But of course, if you are in the very low levels of a confidence, it means that probably there are some issues. As you can see from this initial file dataset that contains 52 articles only, we gathered more than 6,000 entities. It's quite substantial for a small data set. It means that these texts are very rich in terms of named entities. So the issue that we may ask ourselves, so what are the kind of named entities that were recognized? To get a sense of what you have, if you want to have a preliminary, you can of course filter. For instance, you want to select only persons. So you have here automatically only the persons appear. And as you can see, these are really persons' names. In some cases, it may be ambiguous. Sometimes it may just be a first name, but this is how the term appeared in the text. The same applies if we look for organizations, for instance. Here, sometimes it's less obvious. As you can see here with an example of something that was recognized wrongly. It can be very useful, for instance, to identify specific items such as laws, bills, etc. Or another very interesting feature is the capacity to identify named events. Geneva, Washington here refer to conferences, for instance. It's not explicit, but this is the case. And in some other cases, it's listed more explicitly. So you can have a first idea by choosing to see some of them, some of these named entities only. Another way to look at the results is to look at the text themselves. In this interface, you can go to the Visualization tab, where you have all the text in the datasets, in our case 52 articles, that are annotated. Here you see the same categories. The difference is you can see it in the text. They are labeled by color and category of named entity. So you can see immediately the content that you can have. We can take a look at a longer text. You can see why we obtained so many named entities. It's very rich in terms of persons, GPE, dates, and so on. Now, of course, looking at the individual text is useful, but you want to have a global idea of what you retrieved in terms of named entities. And this is where we produced also document statistics that are meant to take the measure of these named entities. The first statistic is the distribution in absolute terms, absolute numbers of the different types of named entities. You can see, for example, that you have lots of dates, lots of numbers, lots of geopolitical entities, NORP, organization, persons. You can see the distribution, and the other are more or less at the same levels. So you can see what are the prominent categories in this data set. You can also see the proportion in a different way. Here, it's also the distribution, but instead of having the absolute number, it's represented as a percentage of the total. So for instance, you can see persons here that represent probably around 20%. You can see dates, you can see cardinal numbers, and so on. There is also a table to give you the distribution of all the named entities, whatever the category, by confidence index. You can also take a look at not just the confidence in absolute terms, but at the confidence by type. This is a box plot. A box plot is a summary of data that highlights the central tendency, spread, and skewness of a data set and their outliers. It may not obvious to read graph like this, but if you look closely, you will see that each of them gives you a maximum value, a minimum value, a median value, and the various quartiles. Basically, it tells you where the confidence index is best represented. The whiskers, these elements here, these blocks, extend to the minimum and maximum value within a certain range, and the points outside this area are considered outliers. So if we take, for instance, the GPE category, we have the most variability and outliers, which suggest an inconsistent confidence across data points. On the other hand, for law, for instance, or for language, in reality, they have much higher median confidence level that indicates a more reliable recognition or classification. So the box plot helps you quickly assess the confidence level of entity recognition across the different categories, where we can identify which entities are predicted with more certainty by the model. If you look at the overall shape of this box plot, you can see that there is a lot of similarity. So by and large, good recognition. So to sum up, you have a data frame, which of course you can download here by clicking, so that you can process this data separately. In particular, if you want to do network analysis, it will be easy to build a node list, an edge list between, let's say, persons and organizations, or persons and locations, or organizations and locations. You can also use locations to draw maps, provided that you are able to locate these places with your coordinates. But even if you don't do that, you can simply draw a mental geography that appears in the set of documents that you are processing. The document statistics are very useful to give you a concrete sense of the content of the major terms that appear in the text. And this is something that's commercial providers do not make available. This is a very valuable tool. And as scholars who study text, the fact that you are able to go back to the text and to see how the named entities have been annotated is also something very useful, especially if you use other approaches through Python or through R, where you lose the contact with the original text. You can always come back and play on the two modes of operation between having a purely computational approach to text and then coming back to the text, the full text for each article that you want to compare with your results. Let me now do the same with Chinese. So we'll select the Shengpao and we'll upload another data set. This is Wang Jingwei. This is Wang Jingwei between 1998, when he was 15, to 1919, before he became a really important figure in the nationalist movement. As you can see, it takes a little more time because we have about 200 articles, and it will provide also a large number of named entities. So once again, we can observe that this limited data set of less than 200 articles produced more than 46,000 entries. So this is extremely rich. It also means that when we get so many results, we want to know what we have at our disposal. You can, as for the English terms, work on the different categories. So of course, persons won't tell you much, because you will find, except that of course you can check the accuracy. In some cases here, for instance, we have a person who is associated with France, but the name of the person was mixed up with the country. Let me show you also products is a very interesting element. You can see that we have different pills, different medicines, in fact, that have been recognized, but some of them are recognized by the trademark. So again, it's a very powerful instrument. We have lots of geopolitical entities, and often keep in mind that geopolitical entities can be mixed up with locations. You can see we have on the top here, we have Hong Kong. Hong Kong could also be considered, of course, a location. So we have lots of indication of geographical name. And in the case of NORP, we have mostly, yes, countries that's or groups that are identified, like person, Japanese, Vietnamese. We can also take a look at events, named events as recognized in these texts. So this is extremely rich, and this is why we need to have other tools to make sense of this. The first one is, of course, to use, as previously shown. See, even a small short text like this, but not even 3 lines, has a lot of entities. Now, if we have a longer text, of course, we'll have an enormous amount of named entities, which is characteristic of how articles were written at the time in Chinese newspapers. The visualization of text with annotation is a very important feature that you can also use in combination with the use of HistText in an R environment. And sometimes we want to be able to move between this and the original text. And in fact, there is no need even to do this whole search. You can in fact just input manually document ID. In this case, let me take the same examples that you can see. Let me go back to this one, okay. And I will type another one, ask HistText to annotate. Okay, as you can see, this was done in seconds. I could have, I can maybe randomly try another one. So it does not exist apparently. Okay, in this case, this document ID does exist in the collection. It was again annotated. I hope that now you have a better sense of the capabilities of HistText and what it can do for you, for your research, when it comes to exploring large-scale digital corpora and to extract data from these corpora. To conclude this presentation, we'd like to say that HistText represents the next step in scholarly research in the humanities. HistText provides a full range of functions that empower scholars to explore large-scale text bases, to build datasets, and then extract data. It contributes to the datification process in the humanities, where text is data or can be turned into data and be used for all sorts of purposes. One of distinctive features is, of course, to have developed models for the Chinese language that match the kind of Chinese that has been evolving between the mid-19th century and the 20th century. It is important to emphasize this aspect. We welcome you to visit our platform and to make use of our resources. And of course, we also welcome any contribution if you happen to have textual resources that can be added to the modern China text base. Thank you again for your attention.